As the landscape of business education continues to evolve, we're exploring the broader trends shaping this field and how leading institutes are responding to the same. And for that, we've got Mr. Vishal Talwar, Director, INT. First things first, how do you see business schools responding to the demands of leadership?
Well, I think there's a lot of change in expectations. I think for us, the way we are looking at what's happening in the world right now, what business leaders are facing, younger leaders are also facing, the ones who will get into the corporate world are also facing, or will face, are things such as climate-related decisions, things such as sustainability practices, things such as this whole idea of virtual, corporations or virtual offices, where you have not been able to see anyone, but you're still working with them, or you're not been able to meet them face to face. The other thing you got to keep in mind is that nowadays there's a lot of decision making that's not about planning for the entire year, planning for 2 years, or planning for 3 years. So business leaders have to plan almost on a daily basis, a monthly basis. The other issue that you have to look at also is the human-machine interaction because of AI and stuff like that. So the business leaders who are getting into the corporate world now are, getting into a very, very different environment, which will test them to their limits.
You talked about virtual. Now that's something that has been happening for a while now, but got accelerated during the pandemic. Let's also talk about the post-pandemic world. How are the MBA programs structured now? Have they factored in any of the changes that happened because of the pandemic?
We are an ACSB accredited institution, IMT Ghaziabad, and it's been for the last 8 years. It's an American accreditation. It's a gold standard in terms of business schools all over the world. The way they define what's happening in the world right now, it's not just about somebody coming in from the undergrad and actually moving into their MBA program, but a lot of people who are more experienced. At the same time, it is about interconnectedness. What does that mean? There's a lot more focus on what I would call as practitioner involvement, industry involvement. At the same time, it is also about interdisciplinary approaches. You might have to fuse in things from the liberal arts domain. You might have to fuse in things from the technology domain. You might have to fuse in things, let's say, from the law domain, right? There's so much that is at stake for a business leader now that, a lot more of accountability has to be taken by the business schools to be able to build in the interdisciplinary approach that we keep talking about. What is also important, apart from what I mentioned just now, is the integrated approaches, which means that students or participants nowadays are looking at learning when they would like to learn, right? When they feel like learning. Are we being able to blend in a lot of traditional practices of learning communication, of delivery, and also bring in more technology-oriented practices? So these are what I would call as integrated approaches, like the way ACSB talks about. India's management program compare to the global standards? This whole ethos of management education is very strong and quite old from an Indian perspective. It's been there for some time. If you look at some of the institutions, if you look at XLRI for that matter, they started somewhere in the 1940s, if I'm not wrong. Of course, the nature of the participant, the nature of the student is possibly a little different when I compare, let's say, MBA programs in India and MBA programs maybe in the US or in other parts of the world. There's a tradition in the Indian context because of socioeconomic, conditions or realities, that you tend to have a lot more early experienced students in the programs, right? People who've just finished undergraduate, people who've just done, let's say, their BCom or their BTech or their BBAs, and then they're joining the MBA program. Which is not as common, in some other parts of the world, wherein people tend to work after their undergrad and then maybe join the MBA program, post some experience. Having said that, that is obviously changing. That's changing because a lot more of the students are not looking at undergraduate education just as a transition, right? They are viewing it as a terminal degree also. So the dynamics are changing. Best practices, we have some very good practices in India. That is a lot to do with a complete focus on careers, a complete focus on what will the students do after they finish, what's their exit velocities, what kind of jobs, what is it that they would actually do. That focus, along with a certain level of personalized orientation in terms of being able to mentor and guide at the individual level, is something that is, in my opinion, a good strength of the Indian context. Of course, we can learn, as well. We might have certain strengths. We can learn from other places in terms of, the pedagogies, in terms of, learning paradigms. We can learn how do we use technology, how do we use instructional design, and a lot more that needs to be done. But I think there's always a give and take between, Indian practices and possibly Western practices. And I believe that now we're getting stronger as well. Indian management educators, Indian management schools, for research reasons, for teaching reasons, have been venturing out globally. And that's something that is now showing, let's say, in the rankings, for example.
And that's where international collaborations come into the picture?
Well, I think we have a strong international collaboration regimen. We have almost 55 international collaborators that we work with. And international collaboration is viewed as a way to be able to enhance and continuously improve our processes across, right? So where do we collaborate? We collaborate for research, we collaborate for our students going abroad on exchange, we collaborate for immersions, we collaborate wherein our faculty work with each other, we collaborate for our centers of excellence, for example, right? We collaborate even in being able to deliver programs. Let's say, for example, we have programs right now, wherein we have a lot more collaboration. We collaborate wherein a lot of our faculty, let's say in a dual country program, come in from different parts of the world. And, this is how we look at international exchange or international collaborations. It has to be able to mean something to us, right? So you might have blanket agreements, you might have blanket arrangements, but our idea is that, there are specific institutions in different parts of the world and they can help us reach our goal, a certain kind of an objective, and that's what we work towards.
Approaching it from the learner's perspective, what metrics are most important in the rankings of global business schools?
I think a lot of the international rankings look at alumni progression as a very, very important parameter. Alumni progression over a period of time. They look at possibly the weighted salary that they received once they graduated from the business school. They look at what have they been doing after that, how they have, let's say, got promoted. And at the same time, they also look at career satisfaction. They look at aims and aspirations. More than 50% is the alumni progression. But equally important are what I believe are progressive metrics. Progressive metrics such as the gender diversity, the metrics such as carbon footprint, metrics such as, net zero, metrics such as what number of international students or faculty exist at the institution, how many women are on the board of the institution. So these are all what I believe are progressive metrics. Both become fundamentally important when you are looking at wanting to become more globally recognized. And it's no wonder that a lot of the Indian business schools have been in the last few years working on these elements. And now, I'm not surprised that almost 10, 12, 13 Indian business schools find themselves, let's say, in the Financial Times Masters, in management ranking, including IMT Ghaziabad.
And now, from Institute standpoint, what is the key to getting to and then maintaining the leadership position?
Our vision is to contribute to business and society, and of course, in the process, be able to, produce leaders who are ethical and entrepreneurial and focused on further development. How you do it, whether you adopt blended approaches to learning, whether you adopt newer curriculum in the classroom, whether you use certain elements of generative AI, whether you use storytelling techniques, whether you use cases, simulation, gaming, a lot of all that will change over a period. But the core focus of practice-driven management education, to contribute to business and society, that remains intact. That does not necessarily change. What courses we offer? Do we focus only on the domain expertise? Do we focus on technicality of the subjects? Do we focus on the holistic development? Do we focus on being able to look at technology and understand technology, or be understood by our students, its implications? That's something that, of course, has become far more important as we go forward, and that will contribute towards our involvement in the classroom, how well our students do once they graduate or whilst they are actually here studying. The fundamentals remain the same. The fundamentals remain the same because of the fact that you're focused on the learner. We are focused on the student. We are learner-centric. And in the process, we adopt newer mechanisms, newer methods of being able to provide the learning and the knowledge in the classroom.
You welcome diverse set of students. So how do you foster innovativeness or entrepreneurial spirit into them?
Obviously, something like entrepreneurship, a lot of people argue that it's a trait that is innate. But we fundamentally believe that it may be an innate trait, like leadership, but it has to have the right environment. It has to have a certain facilitation. It has to be able to, be provided with opportunities. So, we have an entrepreneurship, focus. We would like our students over a period of time to start choosing, entrepreneurship as a definite way of contributing to society and to themselves. We have a small group of students who currently are venturing straight away into their ventures, into their startups, just after leaving. But we want this proportion to be much higher. So we have an Innovation Incubation Center. The Innovation Incubation Center is able to provide the right facilitation, right? So our head of incubator works along with the team, works along with me as well, to be able to ensure that we have the right kind of program. We have the right alumni involved in the mentoring. We have right advisors. We also have, let's say, facilitation for investment for these students. These are ways and means by which you are able to create much more confidence in the student, that he or she can go forward along with their venture. And we're rather happy to note that more and more students are coming to us now. We have an ethos of a lot of our students becoming entrepreneurs. There are major examples of such students who become entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs. We would want more of them to do that. And we have that right facilitation. We keep focusing on that as we go forward.
With sustainability becoming critical, how do you see management schools integrating it into their programs?
Sometimes the whole focus on sustainability is innate. It is something that comes out of the consciousness of the organization. But many a time it is about what the outside world is looking at, what they want, what the consumer is seeking, what are the generations seeking. And a lot of the generations now are actually seeking more meaning out of what they do, more meaning out of their experiences, more meaning out of where they want to belong. And a lot of this is focused and woven around sustainability. So a business school has to be able to integrate sustainability at its core. It cannot be fulfilled by one course that you do and we all are happy saying that, okay, we have a sustainability course and we've done our bit for the planet. It's not the case. There has to be a DNA, integration. Institutions like, ours, we have programs wherein our students are able to work along with enterprises which are focused on sustainability, are focused on, let's say, marginalized societies, and our students are able to work with those as a part of the whole experience of learning.
That's a very holistic approach. What is your long-term vision for IMT?
We've come a long way. IMT Ghaziabad has been in existence for the last 44 years with that one core focus that I keep talking about. Learner-centric orientation and learning and knowledge, and creating business leaders of the future. That's fundamentally remaining the same. Expectations have changed, global realities have changed. So fundamentally speaking, IMT Ghaziabad has been an institution, and this is something that we want to keep on reinforcing our position on, is that we are a school that has global ambitions, global aspirations, global thoughts, global ways of being able to provide the right kind of learning environment, but it's strictly and fundamentally, married to the Indian ethos, right? And that's something that we want to continue with. We do realize that, yes, you have a legacy. Yes, we have an existence. Yes, we have a lot of strengths going for ourselves. But in the longer term, how do we, contribute to the student? How do we differentiate? How do we compete? How do we reach the kind of aspiration that we're trying to reach will require a lot of very different transformative aspects that we have to look at, right? Where we talk about transformation for the student. So we have to be able to balance the both as we go forward. So I'm very upbeat about the future, and so should all our faculty, all our students, they should be.
It was very educative and informative speaking to you. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.